get it right. No, I don't want the fame and glory. I just wanna be a light.
Greetings, people. Thank you for joining me. My name is SiSi, and you are joining me today on the podcast called Miss SiSi The Real InfoPreneur. We release at least 2 podcasts per week, and you can find us on SoundCloud as well as Black Talk Radio Network. Today, we will talk about healthy media. What is it? Does such a thing really exist? Oftentimes, when things get difficult, as they have in the past couple of months, which is what we've been dealing with so much these past couple of months. I mean, with the COVID virus, as well as Black people being killed by police and the civil unrest of everyone from around the world, we need a healthy outlet. Oftentimes, media serves as a healthy outlet for us, whether it be social media, TV, radio, or something like that. So when tough times happen, we have a tendency to kind of reflect on our childhood. We like to rediscover childhood because that serves as our happy place. And I put that in quotes, because they say ignorance is bliss. As you think about your childhood, you think about those fun things, those fun times you have. But, sometimes it's just we didn't know certain things. And that's why it just seems so happy. But we're going to get into that today. So I can speak from experience because just yesterday I was on social media, which I often am. I always tell people, if you can't find me, just look on Facebook because I think that that's my new address. I'm always on Facebook. But I was on Facebook and I saw that we had lost one of the Pointer sisters, Bonnie Pointer. And when you think of the Pointer sisters, well, at least somebody, my age or maybe a little bit older, you think of the song that they had called Jump for My Love. I think that was probably the most popular song that they have or had, although they had more songs. But as I did a little bit of digging, I remembered that they had a song or a whole album that my siblings and I used to listen to. I don't even know why we owned that, but we did. We literally used to listen to this album all the time. And my older sister used to make us reenact. And there was no music video, so I'm not sure how she put those things together. I swear she should have been like a theatrical person, but she didn't make it. she totally didn't make it, but she had us doing all these different things with the Pointer Sisters album. But again, like I said, the album that was most popular was one called Jump. Let's listen here for those of you that have never heard that. So we're going to play for it right now. Okay. So as you have heard the lyrics to that song, I think that you would agree that someone, which was me, a 3rd or 4th grader, should not have been listening to a song with lyrics such as that. And that seems to be true all throughout like the 1980s. I think people would agree, there was so much music going on. There was, the time of MTV and VH1 and all that, and all kind of music was being thrown at us. Even Prince, Michael Jackson, the imagery, the sexual stuff that was just out there, and a young person should not be exposed to that, but that's just where we were. And now it just kind of encourages me to kind of look backwards, at my own children. They're grown now, they're adults. But I remember a time when I went to work and my coworker, she came with some very devastating information. She had the cover of the original animated version of The Little Mermaid. And on the cover, at the very top in the castle, you could see a well-disguised but very visual penis. Yes. Someone had drawn a penis in the top of the castle, and I was like, wait a minute. I mean, it just kind of left me confused. Why in the world would somebody draw a penis on this cover? I mean, this is Disney. It just blew my mind. And again, this is like the 90s or whatever, because it was in my children's era. I was enraged. I was outraged. I was all kind of raged. Okay. So that left me to think, okay, what is it that I had exposed my children to? Was it all Disney movies or was it just this movie? I just wasn't sure at that point, and I just was uncomfortable, with the cartoons and stuff. So, as I went throughout the years and I did research, I found that this was not only Disney. This negative imagery had been going on for years. I mean, literally years. I recently watched a documentary, and it was called Blackface Minstrels, and that was by PBS. You guys can look that up. I just happened to, watch it the other day, but this negative imagery, especially concerning our people, has some very deep roots. And yes, there's a lot of racism. And when you go back to the subject matter of children, us as children, we were exposed to racism from the Looney Tunes and Bugs Bunny. They had a lot of racist characters in Looney Tunes. I mean, it's deplorable. You had Felix the Cat. That was a little bit before my time, but I remember that here in St. Louis, they used to play that. I didn't understand why my cousins watched it. It was black and white, and I just wasn't really interested. But Felix the Cat, they had some racism in there. And then also Tom and Jerry. I think if you watch Tom and Jerry, you remember the Mammy and the Aunt Jemima lady and the black legs and the house shoes and how she spoke and, just all these different characters with pink lips. And there was always some portrayal of somebody eating watermelon and just all these different things from the cartoons. But yet and still, they still played on television. Now, one of the most disheartenments that I experienced would have been when I discovered that Dr. Seuss had some racist media that was going out. Now, of course, as children, Dr. Seuss, he was probably, you probably learned to read off of Dr. Seuss because he had very simple books like The Cat in the Hat, One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish. Those types of stories, pretty much, you should remember those. But Dr. Seuss, he was a racist. We didn't know that. But yeah, he was quite the racist. Let's listen to this clip here that I found. All right. So, yep, again, that was Dr. Seuss. And although these matters are very troubling, we must simply be mindful of what we are exposing ourselves and our families to. Which brings me to our guest today. His name is Mike J. Dennis, or you could probably call him Mike D. That's his cool name. And he's actually the creator of a channel that I found on YouTube called Reelblack. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Hey, SiSi. I'm very good. I'm very good. Thanks for having me. Thanks for reaching out.
Oh, thank you so much. I am so honored to have you here because I'm telling you, when I found Reelblack, I was like, wow. And that's because I saw the positive information that you put out. So talk to us about how you got started in the industry.
Wow, that's a long answer. In terms of the industry or the YouTube?
No, in the industry, because we're going to get into it even more.
Okay, well,
independent films.
Well,
did you start out?
Yeah, sure. Well, for those who don't know, Reelblack on YouTube, our mission is to entertain, educate, and enlighten and empower Black people using using the magic of film. Enlighten your soul, and that extends to my own personal work, my art, my filmmaking. I feel like that is what the path I've been on since I'm a little kid. But and I guess maybe I'm a little bit older than when you were talking about Pointer Sisters. I was thinking like, yes, we can, was the. But yeah, rest in peace, Bunny Pointer, and we will have a very special thing in the next few weeks of a live concert from the Pointer Sisters on the channel, I believe. So, but yeah, basically, Black kid, raised middle class by his grandparents in Philadelphia, PA, and grew up watching a lot of TV. and was sort of a savant. At a certain point, I could look at, because all we had, you said you didn't have music videos. There wasn't the internet back in the 80s. You just had a few books, reference books. So, I would literally read Leonard Maltin's guide, Film Encyclopedia, Danny Peary's guide to for the Film Fanatic, and Michael Medved's Golden Turkey Awards. These were the books that I would read, in addition to Mad Magazine and whatnot. And it got to a certain point where I could literally look at a film on TV with the sound off for like 3 minutes and guess within the year what year it was made. So it kind of wired my brain a weird way. And at a certain point, I wanted to do it. I felt like I could do just as good as anybody. Any films that I saw I was really interested in. And as luck would have it, I got into the New York University for undergrad and completed that. Got a degree there in 4 years. Struggled for 2 years. Ended up working for Bill Cosby. I was an intern on the original Cosby Show, and that led to a job on a short-lived show he had called You Bet Your Life, and that gave me enough money to complete my final project. I submitted that film along with some other things to the American Film Institute, got into there, and got a master's degree in directing, and came back to Philly because I didn't really like LA, couldn't afford New York. And I think that sort of to cultivate the seeds for Reelblack, because it was a good decade before the technology shifted where I could afford to make my own films. But I would go see working video stores and stuff and seeing hundreds and hundreds of movies and Urban World Film Festival in New York, just very, very deep encyclopedic knowledge of film and filmmakers before I had the chance on my own to have the money and the resources to make my own work. So as my short films, my independent films started to get into film festivals, I started to meet other filmmakers, young Black filmmakers that were looking to screen work. And at the time, Philadelphia didn't have any film festival devoted to African American film. Film, Larry Smallwood's event was not strictly Black film, because up until this point, there hadn't been an explosion of work by Black filmmakers. It was just very cost prohibitive. So, with that in mind, I got the opportunity to program a monthly series called Reelblack. And we did that up until last September, 16 years, at least once a month, showcasing Black film but at the same time, simultaneous to that, in about 2006, 2007, we started a public access show where I interviewed filmmakers and artists and film concerts and did things, and that would air on Philly Cam. And between those two things, I self-educated, self-apprenticed, and as we were in the middle of the series, we started, normally we would do a half-hour show, and I would put those clips on the YouTube channel. Then we had the good fortune of meeting Baba Dick Gregory. Mm-hmm. And the first time we interviewed him, I thought it was going to be like a half-hour interview that I would cut into like a 10-minute segment, but he went on and on and on. We literally shot every tape we had, and I swear to God, if we still had enough tape, he'd still be there talking with us. So we had about 3 hours of footage from that shoot, and I didn't know what to do with it. I sat on it for a year.
Wow.
Because I said, well, it's not fair for me to edit this, but at the time I was still educating myself as to who Dick Gregory was. So we ultimately put that video up, and about a month later, I did another interview with him, same kind of thing, 2 hours or 3 hours, and we put those up, and it just sort of caught, by that point, people could watch longer things on YouTube because smart TVs were coming in and things like that. People start using YouTube instead of just watching small clips on their phone in low quality. They'd watch in very high quality on their smart TVs. So we just hit a perfect storm with that, and it opened us up to a whole lane, which coincided with my interest in terms of curating film, but also helping empower Black people. So since then we've grown the channel. We just crossed the 550,000 subscriber mark. At this month during the virus, we are averaging 1,000 new subscribers a day.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah, actually, we reached 40,000 subscribers this month. And it just seems like it's another perfect storm where, we have an inventory, it's 2,000 clips on that channel. Most of them relate in some way to Black experience. And as you say, trying to like give you an alternative to the negative images we're constantly thrust upon us. And then also what's great about the channel, I think, is people can leave comments. So I think we really, a lot of smart people have gravitated to the channel, and they get smarter by commenting and sharing their ideas and perspectives. And then, as you say, when it's something older, we don't have the same triggering distance as if somebody threw something in our face now, react to it. It's like, wow, you bring your own sense of memory to the experience of watching something, be it I was 3 years old when that first came on, or I wasn't even born yet and they're still talking about the same things, or, so by giving people a little bit of historical perspective that they can also integrate into their own existence, I think it's really become a phenomenon. So that's essentially it in a nutshell.
Now, for me, when I watch Reelblack, we must also let people know that if you're going to look for Reelblack, it's spelled R-E-E-L. You have to think about, movies, films, it's a reel. It's not R-E-A-L, it's R-E-E-L. So when you go
because I'm a genius and I thought of that all myself.
Actually,
not 100% true. I think I'm the first person to put the two words together as one word, but in the 70s, they had the Reelblack, Black Reel Film Awards and things like that. But when the name comes, I wanted to have a magazine at one point, but that didn't really gel. But I owned the domain, and it just sort of took off from there, and it became a part of me. So yeah, R-E-E-L, folks.
Yes, R-E-E-L, and the logo is a Black lady ready to do a take. She's a cartoon or animated character. So yes, look him up, Reelblack. But I find comfort in Reelblack because I know that I could turn Reelblack on and not be barraged with negative imagery, and know that I'm going to learn something. And most importantly, I know that I'm going to be able to draw off the movie and attach it to something else that I already know. And I'll give you an example of that. Like, I just watched the movie, what was it called? What was the movie called? I'm going to tell you in a second.
Okay.
The movie called James Thornwell, with Glenn
Oh,
Turman.
wow. Yeah, that's a powerful one. Yeah.
I mean, the thing is this, like, okay, where I know Glenn Turman from? Of course, I know he's been around, but the most prominent thought of Glenn Turman for me is watching him on A Different World, because I've been watching A Different World for the past 2 weeks. I think I'm on my second go round of the whole season. So, of course, I know him from A Different World. He's the Colonel. And, of course, he was on, what is so
Cooley
hard
High.
to guy? Yeah, he was Cooley High. Yes, Cooley High.
Yeah.
And he's been on so many other things, but it
And
made me
married to Aretha Franklin,
yeah,
you know.
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm getting to.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Made me do, no, you're fine. We're having a conversation. So it made me look him up. I'm always interested in whatever the internet says about the person, and I was like, wow, okay, I didn't know he was married to Aretha Franklin. I had no clue. And it's just like, wow, okay. But that movie was so amazing to me. I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. So I'm going to give people a little bit of background, to that movie because it was a true story. Basically, it was a governmental drug test going on for people in the military. And several people wanted to kill themselves. This man, they sort of drove in that direction. He didn't end up killing himself, but he did develop serious mental condition, and he was unable to really operate, regular life. Like he was just totally disheveled and messed up. He couldn't have relationships. It was terrible. That movie was crazy. Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's part of. Well, shout out to Charles Woods. I mean, my OG, my host of my podcast. He is a collector of these things, and that was something that I never knew existed until we started talking, and it blew my mind. And it's based on a true story. The real James Thornwell. There's interviews. He did 60 Minutes piece on 60 Minutes. That's what led to the film being made. Was this devastating thing on 60 Minutes, which is on YouTube. It's not on our channel, but at the time in the 60s and 70s. There was a lot of experimenting with LSD and different mind-controlled drugs, and the CIA was at the forefront of it. So, I think, this young black man was a victim of it. Basically they didn't tell him that they were going to do these experiments. And that's something that we see over time throughout history. If you look at, Oprah did the piece about the DNA, Lucretia, and then obviously the Tuskegee stuff. There's a great film HBO did, Miss Evers Boys, but there are lots of medical experiments and things that have been done to black people, which makes me wonder how effective, now that we're aware of this, how effective these vaccines are going to be.
Oh, Lord, have mercy. Do you really want to talk about that? That's crazy. So when we talk about
Well,
medical,
it opens a door. It opens a door. I don't, if you have a thought, I'm open to it.
oh, well, I'm saying like we could start at Harriet Washington, who wrote the book Medical Apartheid,
Yeah.
I mean, she's a great person to talk to concerning these matters. And then, of course, we have Henrietta Lacks. Now,
Yes.
Henrietta Lacks, we know that there's a book, but I don't feel that the book really has done justice, because enough of us still don't even know like the complexity of that stealing of her cells. We don't get it. Like there would not be many things going on today had they not stolen Miss Lack's cells.
Mm-hmm.
That's all there is to it.
Yeah, you don't have to go that far. I mean, just hysterectomies that are given without permission. There's a lot of sinister things that we have to suffer through, and it's just, from my perspective, especially reading the comments, a lot of people want these changes to happen instantly and overnight, and I think it's the nature of who we are as human beings. The minute we become aware of something, it becomes an immediate problem. And here we are in America. We're taught that we are going to win all the time. We're going to win at all times, at all costs. So I think awareness is the most I can do in these times. I know all feet need to be on the ground for us to get through this one. Because everything's sort of coming to a head. There are a lot of issues and problems that must be dealt with if we're going to get into this next century. And we're as we become aware of the obstacles and other people's intentions and the way that we've traditionally been treated, I think there's no, like you said, you can Google. There's no reason to be ignorant to anything.
No.
If you have any level of curiosity, and I love the fact that the channel is a way to re-engage people into these thinking processes, and how are we going to get through this? We've gotten through it in the past, and at the very least, water rises to its own levels. There are cartoons, there's music, there's all kinds of things on the channel that will engage you. That should be the other E in our entertain, educate, enlighten, and empower. Engagement is also part of the process.
Well, I think engagement is important because we as citizens of this country, I mean, I don't have this issue, but a lot of parents have had to homeschool their children and they were up in arms. But it's just as simple as having your children watch maybe a program on Reelblack and have them voice their opinion, write what they thought, just give them some pointers on how to, create a dialogue and a paper on these things, because it is very healthy for them to see themselves on the screen in a positive way. And as we go back further and we look at these things, they truly are seeing themselves,
Yeah, that's to your initial point. That is the most important thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I get notes, DMs and notes from teachers all the time saying, how much they've used certain films over and over again to show people the heritage of slavery. It just crossed the 1 million view mark, and that's something that until we posted on our channel hadn't really been in people's purview, so to speak. But it's a great piece that CBS did back in the 60s, talking about the legacy, the way we were looked upon, as subhuman by a lot of people, and the struggle that's always existed in order to.
And it's still going on today. That's the thing. Like, you could totally talk to your children about, what is the difference between now and back then, and you can make that connection for them and say, hey, you know what, we're still dealing with some of these things. Another movie that I really, it wasn't a movie, but little docu-piece. I like the one that you did about the women in prison. Like, that was really crazy. You know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think so. The 8-hour special. Yeah, I mean that if we're having a conversation about mass incarceration, a lot of the comments are like, wow, the prisoners were treated with more respect back then. They were allowed to wear their own clothes and different things. I mean, there are lots of people that can give you exact moments in time, bills that were passed where you start to see a shift. And the prison industrial complex, we have an interview with, I had the good fortune of speaking with Angela Davis, and that is her whole passion, prison reform. So these are little gateways into, I guess, awareness would be the best thing.
Yes.
A lot of people, they may have heard of things, or again, weren't even alive when certain things were happening. You're talking about like Showtime at the Apollo, that's been off the air for so long. If you grew up watching it, it reminds you of your childhood. If you weren't born yet, it's like, wow, it's like a whole realm of entertainment that doesn't exist anymore.
What came from that? American Idol, all these things that we started, we're seeing them evolve into something else. But again, there's our history, and our children can see that, hey, we started this thing, Yeah.
Well, Paul Mooney would say, yeah, they steal everything from us, but
yes. And
I mean, the biggest thing for me is, everybody's conditioned to, when they wake up, to turn on their phone the first thing. And, even now your alarm clock is in your phone now, right? So the very first thing you're going to probably touch besides your toothbrush is going to be your phone. Right. And then you gravitate to your messages and stuff. And it's you turn on Facebook or Instagram, and it's always some image or negative thing that's coming at you that is supposed to define you. And I
There's
think,
always some sort of engagement, whether it be negative or positive. You're going to get it when you pick up your phone. And I like that you said that, because on one of my other shows, I talked about that. For myself, like my phone, it was like part of my body. But what I did was I went to the thrift store and I got an alarm clock, because, once you look at your phone for that time, you're going to look at your phone for everything else. So what I do now is I actually unplug the Wi-Fi, all that stuff, and turn my phone off. So in the morning, I have time to actually engage with the Most High and, give myself some breathing time before I turn all this stuff on. I have all day to do that stuff. So
yeah.
it's important that you talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're obviously very smart and very wise to be able to make those connections that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, for me, I don't get, everybody has their own feelings about what this virus is and everything. I think, but for me, holistically, it's an opportunity for us all to hit a reset button, to
Mm-hmm.
slow things down,
Yeah.
at the very least,
Mm-hmm.
understand what takes priority in your life.
Yeah.
We're not equipped to pay attention more than one thing at a time. It's not possible for any one person to change any of this. But what's great is that en masse, we are starting to see people wake up, in a sense, and a real waking up, not just fashion, like, being hip to a record or something. Truly awaken and enlighten, because the wool isn't being pulled over your eyes as easily,
Mm-hmm.
So I feel a great honor in just having a platform where people can discover these things, and then, you have an option at least. I mean, it's kind of hard to avoid this stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
Subconsciously, if it's all you take in,
Mm-hmm.
then it does to your initial premise, it does begin to affect the way you feel and believe and think about yourself. If you don't have, a quote unquote positive images of yourself, and the system isn't designed to deliver those to you,
No.
then you have to deprogram your thinking in a way where now, what I can say, more so than when I started, between the technology making things available, everything's available at once and to more people than
Mm-hmm.
ever before, we can really have a conversation about the past, the way we've interpreted things, and the way we were treated, and the way we want to be treated. So I think in the past, when it was only 3 channels, you could only get one TV show with Black people at a time. Now there's tons of stuff. Is it really servicing your needs, or is it just a representation thing for you to digest? So, but the fact is, if you're tuned in, if you're paying attention to SiSi or other things, you can consciously make an effort not to just watch the same things over and over, or just pay attention to things that are trending on Twitter or pop up on your feed. You can break free of that algorithm and lock on to other things. Sometimes it's difficult, but what I love most about the way YouTube is structured is, if you just watch 1 or 2 videos, they'll start recommending other things that you'll like. And what's great about Reelblack is we've got 2,000 plus videos that you're going to like,
Mm-hmm.
So I guarantee, if you spend a week, and a lot of people will binge this stuff, if you spend a week just watching the content that I curate on the channel, then at least that's a week where you're not Real Housewiving it, and thinking
Oh.
that you got to create drama in your life in order to get love, so.
Yeah,
So
you know what, I just have to say that sort of TV is not healthy, because one, you can see where maybe that sort of show started out being kind of okay, but then as it evolves, it gets worse and worse, and these characters are older, and now they're doing very bad behavior, which is not a good example for you or your family members, because what you take in, honestly, I believe is what you end up being. You know, you see people calling each other the B word and they're yelling and screaming. I mean, you bring that into your household, you take that out into the community. It's what you are absorbing. So for me, I think that is super unhealthy. And there's a lot of things that I don't bring into myself because I don't need that kind of behavior coming from me. I don't have cable. You know, I think a lot of people don't have cable, but I mean, I was kind of addicted to cable. But I don't have cable. There's plenty available to me without cable. So I really structure what I watch.
Well, that's one thing I can pass on. Dick Gregory was saying, like, you know, when we had no other choices, you know, we didn't have any control over the medium or media, then we had to deal with it, you know. But the fact that you have a lot of free thinkers and independent voices that, you know, maybe they're not reaching the masses, and they're not you don't have to, you know. That's the beauty of it. I mean, a lot of what we see on Netflix and things like that wouldn't have existed in a realm where mass audience was important, you know. But you know, Byron Allen, who's a billionaire now or on his way to making billions, you know, he was probably one of the first guys to figure it out. He was like, if an advertiser wants 10 million people to see their ad, you know, let's break conventional thinking. It's not, you know, like a network's way of thinking is we've got to get 10 million people to watch our show at the exact same time.
Mm-hmm. His
genius was, well, wait, if I make a show and I give it away for free to local stations and I keep half the ads, I give half the ads to the local stations, I can get the same number of people to watch the ad over the course of a week in different markets that a network would need to have it in one time, you know. And that was the key to his breakthrough. And then if you talk about Ava DuVernay, who was involved with Array,
mm-hmm.
her genius stroke was she made a film and she felt it deserved a national release. So she broke it down and she said, well, what exactly means national release, you know? And so I can get the press and the ability to have a review in the New York Times or whatever. Well, national release really is just having my film open on the same day and date in multiple theaters. And at the time, the technology had opened up where it was digital production, and AMC theater chain was allowing independent filmmakers to screen their work in the multiplexes because it's like 12, 13 screens. They weren't all being used, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she organized a bunch of local promoters, myself included, to open films up day and date nationally, right, in 7, 11 cities at a time. And she had national releases, and that brought her to the forefront. Now, why is that important? I'm saying to you, it's like, you know, now it doesn't matter. You know, you don't need a big mass of people to watch something at the exact same time. As long as it's always available,
right,
people will catch up to it when they want to, or when it comes to them, when they're ready for it.
Right.
It suddenly becomes a new thing. It's brand new to them,
mm-hmm.
even though it's been sitting on the shelf 10 years in some cases. You know,
Mm-hmm.
these videos or you know, 50 years in the case of a lot of the civil rights movies, you know. So that's making something else happen, you know. So like I said, the Dick Gregory videos, throughout the life of the videos, they've been viewed 22 million times by different people all over the planet. The Heritage of Slavery video, it's peaking this month again, but it just crossed 1 million views, you know. So that type of influence and impact, I think, is available to everybody if they embrace the idea of a long tail. And then you say, well, what do those numbers mean in the grand scheme. Some people are influenced by numbers, and they will never pay attention to you unless you seem to be popular. So I really honor the fact that you reached out and asked to have me call, because I just think this is we're about to hit another level, So.
Mm-hmm. I believe that too, and I think people have to feel unintimidated in this time, because you need to be ready to exercise your gift and be ready to also sharpen your gift. It doesn't mean that you're going to be the best at it, but you will as you work toward perfection, And for me, I just enjoy talking to people about what it is that they love to do. I mean, that is so enjoyable for me. And, I definitely appreciate you for talking to me today, because I'm thinking, wow, who is this person? As I did the research, I found out that you worked with some very important people. Like you talked about Ava DuVernay, you talked about Bill Cosby. Now, who are some of the people that you have worked with or you're going to work with that we should be looking out for?
Oh, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I would say I've been very lucky because of what I do.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is, I'm naturally curious and I love to share, right? I'm a Virgo, So when I had all this training and the doors weren't open to me,
Mm-hmm.
I still needed to work on my craft, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I, there are other people that didn't want. Hey, you want to do this? And they were like, that's not film. And I used to be that kind of snob, when quality wasn't there,
Mm-hmm.
like when people were shooting feature films on VHS, that was not a conversation that I wanted to have.
Mm-hmm.
And because it wasn't the acceptable format, in terms of you need to learn how to, and there's reasons you have to understand how to shoot on film and light film and all that other stuff, but it's extremely expensive, and that was a big barrier of entry. But once the barrier of entry came down to, wow, for X number of dollars, I can have a computer at home and a camera, and I can
Mm-hmm.
shoot anytime I want to, as long as I
Mm-hmm.
have $10 for an hour cassette.
Right.
To me, I'm like sold, because before that, just to get 10 minutes of 16 millimeter film was $100, and $100 to get out of the lab. So now you're telling me for $10, I can shoot for a whole hour and
Wow.
see instantly the results, not have to wait for Photomat or whoever, Kodak to develop it. So that was what sold me. And there are a lot of people who are like, no, that's not documentary. But over time, I was exercising the same skills
But who gets to say
and
that,
building,
honestly? Who gets
putting
to
up
rate
audio.
what
Well,
is
you can have your own barriers of taste and interest. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, so, I chose to do documentaries and short films for a long period of time because the feature films that people were making on mini DV, I just felt weren't going to give me the experience that I wanted, or give the audience the experience that I wanted. But then there are movies. Ava's early work was one of them. Medicine for Melancholy, I think, really kind of shifted the level of conversation, where you started to see it wasn't just Master P making movies on video. It was really intelligent, thoughtful artists that were telling stories and getting them in front of people. And that's when my mind started to crank the other way, and sort of like, okay, how can I get back to my creative muscles? Not just servicing the platform, but really take everything I know and shape it and craft it into something that would be entertaining and possibly fuel for the next generation of filmmakers. So that's what I've been working on, and we'll see what happens. But there's lots of I haven't had like a full-fledged mentor, but I always pay attention to certain people when they have something to say. I think it's intelligent stuff. Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle, 50
Mm-hmm.
Cent.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the people that I feel, the most intelligent in terms of how do you deliver things to the culture that they didn't ask for, but then once they get it, they can't do without. Kanye West, so that's my skull is functioning, and then just trying to be a good person, better person every day, trying to figure out, what my own flaws are, and
Well, that's always a
you know,
work in progress. I mean, totally, as we try to, better ourselves from who we were yesterday. I mean, I definitely agree with that.
well, it's a
Um,
luxury. It's a luxury. I mean, I would say Michael Jackson, and he's certainly a flawed individual,
mm-hmm,
but he said, the difference for me is I take accountability for who I am. I know who I am.
mm-hmm.
I don't use other people as an excuse.
That's
So I
good.
don't know if I'll be able to get to that level of perfectionism and diligence and discipline that Michael Jackson had, but I think what I would say is a lot of the people that we're jumping on to discredit, we should give their flowers. We should pay attention because it's not about reinventing the wheel. It's about passing the baton, right? So you're not going to improve the culture or change things thinking that it's all brand new. And I think that's the importance of history. So, and I love the fact that people have a way to discover some things that they might have forgotten about or never knew about because of the channel.
Yes, I think that that's so important that we know that in the word it says there's nothing new under the sun. And as we live this life, we will definitely see that, there's a lot of repeat going on. And
Oh, amen. Yeah.
that's just the reality of it all. Now, I had the opportunity and the great pleasure of interviewing Mr. Howard Nash of American Whisper.
Mm.
And it's so funny. Had you seen that movie?
I'm not sure. What's it about? Tell us all.
Okay, well, American Whisper is the story of a man. He was in New Jersey or New York, somewhere around there. He came home and his whole family was killed,
God.
but he was kind of flamboyant. And so he wasn't really sure, who this was or whatever. And it's still an unsolved thing today. He didn't go to prison or anything like that. But, of course, after that, he didn't know what was going to happen to his own life. But
Mm.
yeah, the filmmaker was Howard Nash. And, oftentimes I wonder, like, how do you actually decide what is going to be the next big thing for you? Because, we can have these small ideas, but do you look at something and say, wow, I want to do something big with that? Or is it just a collective and then later on it becomes something big?
Well, I think if you're an artist, if I could tell my younger self something, it would be write everything down every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because to get anything to the point where it's visible to the masses, it's a collection of ideas and influences, right? So you have to train your brain to constantly be gravitating back to those ideas. And that's something that they didn't teach us in film school,
Mm-hmm.
which I had to learn. Very difficult,
Mm-hmm.
because they teach a lot of education is not just regurgitating the answers for a test, but
Yeah.
reverse engineering based on the end result, as opposed to the way you really learn how to do something is by doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that gap in terms of in film school is ridiculous, because they're like, watch this film that's a classic and then do your best to emulate it, which is good on a certain level, but what they're not telling you is that a lot of writers will handwrite their entire drafts, and you have this image that it has to be delivered typewritten.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a barrier to a lot of creativity. Like, just I didn't know how to type when I was in college. Now everybody kind of knows how to type because computers are everywhere, but at the time I didn't have that, so it slowed me down.
Mm-hmm.
And So, but, for me, the movies I have gotten done, they came at periods of time when, I had ambition, and I would write the script and it would sit in a drawer. Nobody necessarily wanted to do it, or I didn't have the resources. And then, an opportunity would come around where some money was there, or a grant, and then I had material ready. So I would say, always have material ready, always have an idea, always have a story to pitch, and don't be afraid that somebody else might steal it, because if you're constantly working on ideas, so like Jay-Z says, well, if you think you made me, make another me. It's really
Wow.
about constant, deliberate practice, getting better at all times. And then also about feeling that everything is so precious. One of the things I learned when I was editing at the news, what was great about that was, they would throw tapes at you, edit this 30-second video, right?
Mm.
And you do it, and then within 10 minutes, it would be broadcast all over the city, right? So
Wow.
you learn the reality is, you spend more time thinking about something than it actually takes to do anything,
Yes,
So if you can release yourself of that anxiety, and you just are constantly in a creative mindset, then you have a better chance of getting things done.
that's
And
true. That's true. Because you know what? I know I operate best flying by the seat of my pants, like on spur of the moment. I don't do good with all this super planning. And like you said, writing things down is very important because it becomes a collaborative. Like, okay, I thought about this, I thought about that, and then here's this, and then here I've put it together, and it just becomes a beautiful work in the end. I
right,
definitely can relate to that.
it's a muscle. It's a muscle, and then you can let go of the fear of, how can I do it again? You find, and then you also add layers of play into your process. Like
Hmm.
even if you're like working out or anything. One of the things when I worked on Beloved, I noticed Jonathan Demme. There were big scenes, and he's fighting the studio. I mean, almost the minute they got on the set, they were over budget because they knew they were going to go over budget, right? So, he's getting complaints and left and right. But there were certain days, like one day, all the extras on the carnival scene were former Negro League ball players, you know. So, and that was just fun for him, and you plug those things into your work week. Okay, well, it's sort of like a cheat day. It's like,
Hmm.
I'm going to do this just because it's going to be fun for me. Nobody else might get this at all, but it's going to be fun. And I've had writers, they'll say, they'll go off on tangents, just writing 20 pages and then knowing that's not going to make the film, but it's just fun for them and they can ball it up at the end of the day or whatever. I mean, the cheapest thing in show business is paper, be it a business card. So that means question everybody that approaches you,
Hmm.
because anybody can say they're anything. You really want to vibe with the right people, pick your
Right.
collaborators well. And, when it's just in your imagination, it's be as free as possible, and make it fun. And everybody I've ever seen succeed has done so by breaking the rules, but you have to know rules in order to break them. You can't just you have to know which rules to break. But every single person I've known that has broken through in this game, they've done so by doing something different. So
Wow, I'm writing that down. You have to know the rules in order to break them.
I can give you a whole list of people that have just been, confidence is key. Willy Wonka, confidence is key. You just have to project
You can
the
add
right
me to that
energy.
list because I mean, I believe in breaking the rules because, we have so many people that are afraid to, just step out. I don't even like saying out of the box. I mean, what is this box? People are just afraid to do anything different. They're afraid to do anything different. And it's from school. That's what I believe. In school, they
A lot
train
of it.
you to sit still, sit in your desk, raise your hand. I was never that person. I remember interrupting the class. Like, for instance, I remember in the 5th or 6th grade, my teacher was trying to talk about math. I raised my hand, and I remember this like it was yesterday, and I was so serious. I raised my
Mm.
hand and I said, Did you watch Gladys Knight and the Pimps on TV last night? Yeah.
Okay.
Gladys Knight and the Pimps. And I just remember like being so bored. So that was never my thing, to just sit in my desk and be still, and people are so used to sitting in their desk, even now at work, and being still. And that's just not me.
Yeah. Well, the world is changing, and we just have to make ourselves more aware. What is your purpose? How do you want to fit into this new world that's forming for us? And don't think that everything has to be instant. That's all I can say. I mean, these devices and everything, they bring the world to us very quickly, but that doesn't mean that we should not respect nature, and there's an organic process to planting seeds and watching them grow and cultivating. And, it sounds like you're very faith-based, you understand this stuff, but a lot of young people, I mean, they know, where we are before we do. They can predict our actions. So it's not that you want to use energy fighting that, but use information to really be aware of who you are. And however you get there, it's okay with me. If it's the Reelblack, if it's trying to understand, I'm a big fan of metaphysics and a little bit of astrology, but I mean, really just having a clear understanding of what your nature is, and what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and make sure that you're here to survive all this, because there's a lot of change happening right now.
There is a new world order in place, whether you want to believe it or not. That is the truth. But we definitely will be watching Reelblack. And I think, well, I don't know where this one fit in, but another one, I just want to talk about another one that I enjoyed. I mean, I'm going to watch this thing tonight. I just love Reelblack. Like, I love it. Like, it's wonderful. You know what's so wonderful? It's because it's free. That's the first thing. It's free. So
yeah, you don't have no sign up fees. You can watch on your phone. You can watch it on your computer. You can watch it on your smart TV.
Click on there and you will see the most amazing movie that you didn't know existed. The one I liked was I Passed for White. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, people love that one. Yeah.
Oh, that movie.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people, they know Pinky, they know Imitation of Life. This is a low budget version of that kind of story, tragic mulatto story from the early 60s. Yeah.
That I watched it twice in a row, and I was so, like, I saw it and I was like, I wonder, was that a mistake that I saw this whole movie? So then I played it again and I was like, well, what is this? So, I mean, I was so engaged. I know I had seen Reelblack before, but I thought it was just some random thing. But I found out that no, this is a very prominent channel that I need to be paying attention to. As a matter of fact, I need to hit subscribe. So I did that. And every time the movies come up, I am not disappointed. And last week, I saw another movie that I liked. What is the one with Charles S. Dutton and I don't even want to tell the story, but
Blind Faith. Well, I mean, to be clear, I mean, our intention is to share information. It's not to violate anybody's intellectual property. And if there are things on there, that the copyright holders feel shouldn't be on there, then we immediately take them down. We are operating within the gray area that YouTube has allowed us and everybody on YouTube is sort of like, but we are focused on Black people. Again, entertain, enlighten, educate, empower. Entertain, educate, enlighten, empower.
I'm telling you, if you all have not tuned into Reelblack, again, it's REEL Black. And you can also go to reelblack.com. Well, I don't want to keep you forever, Mike, but do you have any last words for the people? I mean, I could sit here and talk to you all day. I did go to film school by way of the public library for 3 weeks. I learned about B-roll and all kind of stuff, but that's a whole nother story. So,
it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And, again, we try to make the channel a safe place for sharing information and ideas, and I'm glad you're finding movies and stories that you can connect to.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, I want us to get to 1 million or more subscribers, because I feel like, again, that's going to take a lot of people off the track of watching things that aren't good for their brain. We're trying to fight mental obesity, and my personal mission is to prevent the thing that I love the most, which is filmmaking and Black people. I just don't want Black film to go the way of mumble rap, so it's my duty to share as much of what I know with other people, and hopefully they'll catch a fire off of it, and it'll inspire them to do things that are different, or the antidote to what we know has been damaging to us over all these years. In a perfect world, I wish I could share everything, but I can't. We're working within this gray area, but if it just sparks your imagination, and if you feel smarter at the end of the day as a result of watching something on our platform, then I feel like I'm doing my job. So, and I thank you for letting me speak with you for an hour.
You're doing a great job, I'll tell you. And another, I think a place that would profit and benefit would be like senior citizen homes, or, just people doing, sort of movie nights with senior citizens, because some of these movies are from their era or whatever, and they would enjoy watching them. Oftentimes their family members don't engage with them that much. So if they can get back to this era that they lived through, I think it would be a beautiful thing. But I just want to say that I really appreciate what you're doing. And if people want to reach out to you, or if they want to go to the channel or the website, I want you to go ahead and let them know how to do that right now.
Well, just at Reelblack, if you just type into your search engine REELBLACK, chances are I'll come up first. A picture of me and the YouTube channel and the website and the Twitter and the Instagram. I'm unfortunately not on Facebook any longer, but and then just start from there. But I'm just a real, holistic person. I feel like wherever you start to get your feet wet on the channel, it was meant for you. And once you're locked into the algorithm, everything on there is curated. It's worth your time. And at the very least, it saves you time from watching stuff that you already know. You're going to discover a lot if you spend 10 minutes, an hour watching what's on our platform.
Absolutely. Well, Mike D, we want to thank you for joining us here on the SiSi The Real InfoPreneur. And you all, we will talk to you again another time. Thank you so much.